Arena Mode by Blake Northcott. Prologue. As more exciting sports emerge, the older ones will die off. It's inevitable. After you attend your first full-contact sword fight, it's hard to get excited about watching someone hit a ball with a stick. Cameron Frost. New York Chronicle simulcast, June 2033. Suspended 3 kilometers above the arena, I was waiting to be dropped from a hovercraft. If the fall didn't kill me, someone at the bottom certainly would. Anyone in the competition could melt me with a plasma bolt, incinerate me with their heat vision, or simply pummel me to death with their bare hands. But if I managed to survive all of that, and those chances were slim, the time bomb ticking away inside my head would eventually do me in. Either way, I was toast. It was just a matter of time. Staring down at the sharp translucent spires that adorn the top of each mega tower, all I could think about was the possibility of being impaled on one as I parachuted in. That would look pretty ridiculous, especially during the slow-motion replays. When people discuss the biggest tournament in history, it's not exactly how I wanted to be remembered, as the guy who lasted 15 seconds because he fell chest first onto a pointy building, getting skewered like a human shish kebab. As soon as the producer shouted, 3 minutes until showtime, and clapped her hands like an over-caffeinated cheerleader, my life started to flash before my eyes. Nothing epic or mind-blowing, just random stuff, like stepping up to bat at my first Little League game, my days working at the retro comic book store, and things old people told me that I wish I'd paid more attention to. My grandfather used to bore the shit out of me with stories about monumental events from his generation, events that happened 50 years before I was born. I remember where I was when Kennedy was assassinated, he would say, or I know what kind of sandwich I was eating when I saw the moon landing, or I crapped my pants and passed out the first time I heard the Beatles. Okay, I don't exactly remember him saying the last one, but he certainly could have. I tended to space out when he was spinning one of his longer yarns. But I shouldn't be so hard on the old guy. If by some miracle I survived all of this, that's exactly what I wanted. To be able to bore the shit out of my grandkids one day with grandiose tales from my youth. And I had a few good ones. I remember where I was, I would say, sitting in an oversized leather chair in my book-lined study, surrounded by the awestruck faces of the children gathered at my feet. I remember who I was with and what I was doing when the President of the United States made the speech that changed everything. It was the day he announced that superhumans were real. At first, I didn't know how to react. No one did. But we sure didn't expect any of the newly discovered superpower beings to put on a cape and venture out to save the world. Just the fact that they existed was an implied threat as far as the government was concerned, and most of them hid their abilities in fear of persecution. But if one of them was crazy enough to try and fight for truth, justice, and the long-forgotten ideals of yesteryear, it would be too little, too late. For most of us, there wasn't much of a world left to save. In 2041, when wars raged, disease spread, and the deepening recession crippled all but the elite, there wasn't a lot to look forward to. Except for the tournaments. Internationally viewed sporting events where citizens volunteered to participate in dangerous competitions for huge cash prizes, all with the hope of clawing their way out of abject poverty. If you wanted to move from a one-bedroom roach motel into a shimmering megatower, you needed a small fortune. And for the majority of the population, the only way to get that was to compete and to survive. The world was always watching when media magnate Cameron Frost unveiled the rules of an upcoming tournament, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever. This season's rules, or lack thereof, were brutally simple. 13 people test their skill inside a secured urban battlefield, fighting each other, arena mode. It sounded tasteful, but anyone familiar with video game terminology knew that arena mode was just a clever euphemism for deathmatch. This was all or nothing. 12 die in no-holds-barred combat, and one walks away with enough money to not just move into a mega tower, but to buy one of their own. Despite the inherent dangers of participating in one of the increasingly violent events, it was an attractive opportunity for millions who faced an inescapable lifetime of misery. For the largest cash prize ever awarded, there would no doubt be a record number of volunteers. But this particular tournament had one little caveat. If you wanted to take a crack at surviving the arena, you had to be a superhuman. When Frost said those words, you could almost hear the collective sound of the entire planet's jaw hitting the floor. For the first time, we'd get to see an actual comic book battle unfold on live simulcast. It was a dream come true, especially for a certified geek like myself. Ever since I could remember, forums, video lounges, and holo sessions were aflame with arguments about who would win in a fight. Could Iron Man take out Batman? What if Thor battled Superman to the death? And how much ass could Wonder Woman really kick while wearing those ridiculous 8-inch stilettos? These were the questions that occupied my thoughts and dominated way too many of my daily conversations, primarily online where I did the majority of my socializing. We were about to find out what the greatest superpowers were and exactly how they stacked up against each other in combat, not just across the panels of a digital comic or in a CGI-enhanced action sequence, but in real life. This was it. The Flame Wars were about to end. Content to live out the rest of my lower-class existence consumed with my collection of vintage graphic novels and tabletop RPGs, I never aspired to live among the privileged. Like everyone else, I occasionally watched the tournaments, and was especially excited about this one, but I was always happy to remain a casual observer. I'd never even considered entering one as a competitor, regardless of the potential for riches. But life is funny like that. It has a way of turning you upside down and dropping you on your head, right when you least expect it. I craned my neck to the left and saw the producer smiling, holding up a single digit. 1 minute left. 60 seconds until I was about to skydive for the very first time, praying that I didn't collide with a building on the way down. And that was the easiest task I had on my morning agenda. At least I could take comfort in the fact that the other 12 competitors were likely having the same reservations, the same panic attacks, sweat-drenched palms, and nervous tics as the clock wound down towards showtime. Although I had a feeling that my anxieties were a little more pronounced than theirs. Because unlike them, I couldn't fly. I couldn't shoot lasers from my hands or rip lampposts from the ground. In a life-or-death battle to determine the ultimate superhuman, I was the only competitor without a superpower.